At 4:03 a.m., a diesel engine shook my bedroom window like a bad alarm. I didn't set a headlights. Washed my porch bone white, and a charter bus sighed into my driveway, while a woman in a pastel windbreaker lifted a clipboard. Like it was a badge. That was the moment I knew the quiet life I'd been protecting out here in Canyon Falls had run out of grace, and that the 3 boulders behind my barn weren't just landscaping anymore. They were a line in the gravel. My name's Jack Hollis. I build things, fix what breaks, keep proof, and mind my business. I moved to this edge of pine and creek for silence, not for memos about mailbox paint or fines, because my porch light was too warm. But then I met Marla Kent from the Silver Creek Bluffs HOA, who could turn a potluck into policy and a smile into a summons. And if you've ever dealt with someone like that, you know what I mean. It started petty. The kind of letters that make you laugh the first time and make your jaw ache. The third then crept toward bigger stuff. Invented rules, invented fees, invented emergencies. And every time I answered with a document instead of a fight. Because Parcel, 27A my deed, predates the HOA. It says so in county ink. And I framed that page like a family photo. But that morning she showed up with a bus, and strangers dragged coolers and sleeping bags. Like my driveway was a lobby, and I walked out in boots and a jacket and told her plain, "You're on private property." And she gave me that politician's smile and said, "Community overflow, emergency capacity. Keep the engine warm." Then turned her back like I was a speed bump. So I swallowed the hot words in my mouth, said enjoy the chill, and walked away, which that happened. Inside. I didn't flip a light. I cloned my security footage, laid out my permits, touched the county stamps the way a mechanic taps a gauge. Permit 21 to 764B landscape improvement approved boulder delivery. Receipt survey, fresh from spring. And I whispered those numbers because the only language a bully respects is the one a judge can read. Out back, the stones waited like sleeping animals. The ATV coughed awake, the flatbed clicked onto the hitch. The lever bar sang that ugly metal song as the first boulder rolled, and up front, somebody fired a Bluetooth speaker that sent bad pop music through my pines. Which would be funny if it weren't my home, you know. I backed to the mouth of the driveway, where it meets Ridge Spur Road. Set boulder 1, easy with wedges. Then 2, then 3, gray knuckles across the exit. Just as the sky went from ink to graphite, the bus driver leaned out. "Hey man, I got a schedule. How do I get out?" And I said it like a metronome. When the trespass ends, the exit opens. Marla marched over. Shoes crunching windbreaker. Loud called it harassment. Said 500 a day in fines. And more if I endangered community safety. And I said 3 words that took the air out of the scene. Read the deed. The cruiser slid in. Without siren, Sergeant Dana Ruiz took her time, let Marla empty her bag of adjectives, then held out a hand. I delivered the folder deed permit, timestamps, survey, stakes to the cedar post and down to the creek. The sergeant asked the driver for paperwork. He shuffled a sheet that said, "Parking approved by the neighborhood association." He looked at Marla like a man who just realized the warranty doesn't cover this. And the sergeant calm said, "It's a civil matter. The barricade sits on the owner's land under a valid permit and the bus stays put, unless the owner authorizes an exit. And in that quiet, you could hear a pine needle decide to fall. That's the part most folks miss about power. It doesn't always shout, sometimes. It's a stamp and 3 stones and a voice that refuses to rise. But I knew people like Marla don't retreat. They rebrand. So I did what the loud folks never expect. I waited, gathered more proof, and made exactly 2 calls. A tip to a reporter who still believes sunlight is honest work, and a text to a county contact to ask if any permits existed for an HOA event at Silver Creek Bluffs. The answer came fast. No permits, and a neighbor named Roy wandered over. Coffee breath, warm hat. Said he heard the bus at 4:02, and when I asked if he'd write it down, he did it on his tailgate without blinking. Good men do small, heroic things that never trend. The bus driver shuffled near the rocks. I told him I'm not out to ruin your day. I'll open 1 lane at a time when Ms. Kent signs a note acknowledging trespass and covering damages. He looked at her. The guests started murmuring. Marla said, extortion. Like the word had a thorn in it, and that right there was the fulcrum. Not the rocks, not me, but the moment everyone saw who told a story and who told the truth. The local news van rolled up Maya Ellis in boots and a no-nonsense jacket. She filmed the stones, the survey stakes. Blinking orange in the frost. My permits, my calm face. Then she turned her mic toward Marla, who suddenly preferred email to interviews. The segment was 2 minutes and did more work than 2 years of replies. My phone lit up most of it. Noise, some of it useful, including a note from an attorney named Tessa Grant, who specializes in property rights. Said my case looked clean, first consult free, and I said great. 3 p.m. Like a man booking a dentist and a victory lap at the same time. Retaliation arrived, wearing official letterhead, an anonymous complaint about runoff damaging the county road. Another claiming unpermitted construction near my barn. The inspector who had answered my permit question showed up. Took pictures. Said everything looked in order. Wrote the report. You could see a tiny apology in his eyes for the errand. Meanwhile, I got a text from an unknown number, take the rocks down, or it gets ugly. Screenshot forward to Sergeant Ruiz and to Tessa. Not fear, just another puzzle piece snapping into the picture that keeps saying the same thing. Stay steady. I decided a gate wasn't escalation. It was clarity. Steel posts. Concrete. A cattle grid. Right where public becomes mine. Orange paint. Marks the post driver. Thudding a rhythm you feel in your hands. The next day, the keypad gave a little chirp that sounded exactly like owning your choices. Roy brought breakfast sandwiches in a thermos. We ate, leaning on the truck like men pretending not to be sentimental about property lines. Late afternoon, the HOA caravan returned 2 SUVs, a sedan, a guy with a camera, and 2 suits, who move paper for a living. They lined up outside the cattle grid. Marla announced they were conducting an inspection on behalf of the board. I said, any step over this grid is trespass, and all communication goes to my attorney. One of the suits handed me a sealed envelope. I said, thank you. Like he brought muffins inside were invented fines and deadlines with no legal teeth, and a line that made me laugh out loud. Remove landscaping objects, blocking community ingress. Scan forward, subject line. Nice try. The live truck came back near dusk. The reporter said on air that the HOA declined to produce documents proving authority over Parcel 7. A neighbors in folding chairs clapped the way you clap in a courtroom. When the judge pretends not to notice that night. My camera pinged motion by the creek, 2 hoodies and fast feet. The deputy found footprints, filed the report, and I slept more like a roofer after sealing a leak than a soldier on watch. Tired, but sure the shingles would hold. Morning delivered the inspector's report. First, no hazards permits. Valid, then Tessa called to say our restraining order. Petition was on the docket that day. I spread the folder on my kitchen table like a map deed permit. Survey delivery receipt screenshots. Roy's statement, and I looked at the boulders through the window and thought, funny, the loudest thing I did was the quietest set 3 stones in weight. At 9:17, Marla rolled up again. Darker outfit. Fewer smiles. Clipboard still glued to her hand. She called across the grid that she had emergency board authority to order immediate removal of hazards. I said. 2 words that felt like a latch clicking shut. Judge, first. Sergeant Ruiz rolled by at 9:26, gave the scene a slow read, and left a nod hanging in the air like a small anchor. Then Maya returned with a smaller camera, asked if viewers could see the property line. That predates the HOA. I walked her from Cedar Post to Creek Marker, explained the plat map so clearly that I could feel my grandfather smile somewhere, and when the bus driver Hector finally spoke on camera, we were told parking was approved. It landed heavier than my rocks. The twist hit at 10:41 when Tessa called, and I hit speaker so the words could breathe temporary restraining order. Granted, Ms. Kent is barred from contacting or approaching you or your property. Shantit report and entered. HOA fines unenforceable on Parcel 27A. And I swear the valley got quieter by half an inch. Marla's phone buzzed. She read the email, her shoulders sagged. The smallest degree. She said, this isn't over. But it sounded like she was arguing with the weather. And I said, for once it is not smug, not loud. Just a man recognizing the shape of a boundary that finally held. If life were tidy, we'd cut to a celebration, a ribbon on the gate, a group hug on the cattle grid. But neighborhoods are messier than stories. That afternoon, I heard the board was calling a special session. People argued online about leadership and community and property values. Some cheered, some said, I'd killed the vibe, and maybe both groups had a point because America is a weird mix. We want neighbors and we want solitude. We want potlucks and locked doors. We want a friendly street and a private driveway. And drawing those lines clean is harder than installing a gate. You know, I didn't throw a party. I brewed coffee, dragged 2 benches near the stones. Set native plants in the soil around their bases. Because if a thing stops a bus for you, maybe it deserves to become part of your garden. Roy sat with me later. And we didn't talk bylaws. We watched chickadees hop the fence wire and laughed about nothing. And the keypad blinked its small, steady light like a lighthouse for one house only. So tell me where you land on this. Was I right or just stubborn with tidy paperwork? HOAs protect value or enable people who like telling other people how to live. Where's the line between community and control, between safety and theater? Drop your take in the comments, argue it out, and if a bus idled at 4 a.m. in your driveway, what would you have done, and where would you draw the line?